No one knows the horrors here.
One of the greatest fears I have, when we covered this in both Watchers 9 and my book by the same title, Days of Chaos, it's the fear of an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse weapon, being used against the U.S. mainland. Recently, this terrifying scenario is once again being talked about. We must understand that under the Obama administration, our country has grown weaker, and we are perceived as weak to many of our enemies. Is this the reason why so many generals have come out and endorsed Donald J. Trump? They know that we are vulnerable, and they are alarmed at our current weakness. We have real enemies in this world. Kim Jong-un, the supreme leader in North Korea, who, by the way, is treated as a living god, has threatened a nuclear war with us. Iran has basically stated the same, threatening to nuke the great Satan. An EMP would be far too easy to deploy in our country, and the effects would be devastating. An EMP would render completely useless everything with an on and off switch. In other words, the world as we know it would cease to exist. Millions of people would die in the first few weeks, and I would posit we would see our country descend into a Mad Max type of lawlessness. Then we have the ongoing war in the Middle East. I think we are looking at World War III. Putin is backing Syria's President Bashar al-Assad, and along with the Iranians are taking back the war-torn city of Aleppo. The carnage is almost beyond words, and the fighting has displaced millions of people. By the way, so far the Obama administration has allowed less than 0.5% of Christians from Syria into our country. The exact numbers are something like 12,000 Muslims to 67 Christians. Unbelievable. There is an agenda in this establishment, and many Americans think it is to our detriment. Then there's the Deutsche Bank in Germany. Is it about to collapse? If it does, it might create a chain reaction throughout the financial world. As of the special PPS report, people cannot access their savings. Donald Trump has stated that the USA is on the verge of some type of financial collapse. With a $20 trillion debt, there is simply no way to pay it back. Once again, I will call your attention to the upcoming election. If Hillary is elected, we will see the national debt go up, as well as more taxes, and in my opinion, the complete decimation of the middle class as we know it. I could make a case here how this is being deliberately orchestrated. We are in the land of media manipulation, and I want to take a moment and show you an interview I did recently with radio host Josh Tolley. Josh was at both the RNC and the DNC conventions, and the two conventions couldn't be more disjunct. Listen to Josh as he explains what happened at the DNC. Remember, it was proven that the DNC chair, Debbie Wasserman, who stepped down, in my opinion, in disgrace, rigged the elections in favor of her crony, Hillary Clinton. Folks, in my opinion, the system is rigged, and it doesn't matter a hoot what the voter does. The superdelegates and the Washington elites will have their way. This is why they are against Donald J. Trump. He's an outsider. And in my opinion, if Trump is elected, he just might clean house. Here's the interview I just did with Josh Tolley. Josh, once again, thanks so much for coming on the record with us. You and I were talking before this interview, and you were at both the RNC convention and, of course, the DNC.
Yes.
This year, 2016. Tell us the disparity between the conventions and what you witnessed, what you saw.
Well, first off, I think both parties are part of the system. I think it's WWE, so I just want to state that out front. But there was a stark difference. At the RNC, as a media or a credentialed member of the media, we had access to everything. We could go to every floor, every room, just everywhere. And it was interesting. You know, there were some things with Trump that were kind of curious. But then when you went to the DNC, we have to check in with the Secret Service. And we got the same Secret Service agent in Philly that we had in Cleveland. And he told us right up front, he goes, "I'm sorry, but you're not going to like this. We didn't set the rules, the DNC did." And the first thing I noticed was that the RNC, there were cameras everywhere from all the networks and all the international media. the DNC had much fewer cameras that all the networks had to pull off of. And I started thinking, well, wait a second, if you control the camera, you control the feed.
Sure.
So that was the first red flag. The second red flag is that everybody in the media, whether it was NBC News or my show, everybody had much limited restrictions. You couldn't go everywhere, you couldn't get to the candidates, even floor access was limited in the amount of time you could be on the floor. So that was concerning. But then what really got interesting is when I'm sitting on the floor, right there in the convention, and I can see a TV screen that is going out to the world. This is what the people at home were watching. And I'm looking at this screen, and I'm looking at the audience. I'm looking at the screen, I'm looking at the audience. They don't match. There were fewer people in the real room than were on TV. And I think, oh my gosh, not only are they restricting the media, they're faking it. And then there were two instances beyond that that really sent a shiver down my spine. The first one was when Sarah Silverman and Al Franken were on stage.
Right.
And at home, you heard cheers and applause. But Sarah Silverman says something really interesting. She says, "You're being ridiculous. You cut it out," or something to that effect. I'm thinking, wait a second, why is she getting mad at the audience, right? Well, I was live and on the floor. What was happening in the room was the Democrats were chanting, "Lock her up, lock her up."
Of course, pointing to Hillary Clinton.
Of course, exactly.
Yeah, wow.
So I'm thinking, wait a second, everybody at home thinking, oh, everybody's cheering and Sarah Silverman is somehow being mean. The reality is everybody in the room was saying, "Lock her up," and Sarah Silverman was saying, "How dare you be so ridiculous." And then the second thing that really shocked me is, you know, when they go from state to state and everybody pledges their delegates and it's ceremonious, they go to California, and the California delegates are so proud to get behind the candidate. And then what really happened was those were actors. Those weren't even real. The real delegates had tape across their mouth and they wrote "silenced by the DNC."
Wow.
So this illusion that somehow she's winning, even amongst her own party, is a lie.
So this whole idea of free elections and the democratic system is basically a joke. Is that what you're telling us?
Oh, it is a joke.
Okay.
It is a joke. Best case scenario, it's a tail wags the dog sort of situation.
Right.
Put something out there and then make everybody believe it. Worst case scenario, she's going to win this thing and not really win this thing. But they presented such an image of, oh, she's only 2 points down or 2 points up. But if you think about it, have you seen any supporters? I have not seen one supporter ever, even at the DNC, other than the cronies that they put out before you.
Right.
I haven't met a natural Hillary supporter. And I don't see signs anywhere. I don't see bumper stickers. Where are they?
Very, very interesting. So this is a controlled environment.
Yeah.
This is managed. And we know that, you know, Debbie Wasserman Schultz stepped down in disgrace, basically, because of what she did and what she's completely manipulating everything. Bernie Sanders seemed to have beaten Hillary Clinton in many of the primaries, but those primaries in which he won actually went to her with a coin toss.
Right.
So this is a managed agenda, as our friend Chuck Missler would say. Let me just ask you something here.
Yeah.
There are people, and this is an expression I've sort of coined as of late. There's a feeling, an overwhelming feeling that we are being herded. And if you don't like the word feeling, we can give, there's an overwhelming thought process by looking at everything that's going on around us that leads one to believe that we, the American people, in fact even the globe, are being herded. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. People ask me all the time, are we involved in some sort of precursor to martial law? The reality is, LA,
yes,
we're in martial law.
Oh, wow.
What's the purpose of an internment camp? It was to keep track of people so you knew what they were up to.
Now everybody knows.
Now everybody
Facebook.
knows. Everybody knows.
Right.
You can't leave the country without permission. You can't come back into the country without permission. You can't buy a home without permission. You can't change the toilet in your house without permission. They now have devices outside toilets, and they don't need a warrant to test what you're flushing, so they know your DNA, your health condition, and they don't need a warrant because you're voluntarily giving that information back to the public sewer system. They don't need to put up a fence. And what I tell people is a fence is kind of like a fence to a dog. Before, we had fences that kept dogs in. Now there's electronic fences.
Right.
And the dog doesn't even know it's there. The dog thinks, hey, I'm free, until you try to cross it, and then wham, they zap you. And that's where we are now. We think we're free. We're saying, well, we're not under martial law until boots are marching down the street. They don't need it. They don't need that anymore. So, yeah.
So here we are in the 2016 election, less than 40 days away now. What are your thoughts regarding a Hillary presidency versus a Trump presidency?
Regardless of who wins, I guarantee you the government's getting bigger. The only choice we're really making is, are we going to get bigger in a nationalist way or bigger in a globalist way? If we get bigger in a nationalist way, at least it provides the opportunity for victory. If we get bigger in a globalist way, hold on to your hat, because it is over. Yeah. Everything you fear is coming, and it's not hidden. There's nothing else standing in their way. And heaven forbid she appoints Obama to either the Supreme Court or he gets the head of the UN.
Yeah, I think he's going to the UN.
Yeah. But either one of them is terrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if Hillary gets in, prophecy is coming to life. If Donald gets in, it's still big government, but at least I think we have a chance of working to restore.
Josh Toley, thanks so much for coming on the record. Appreciate it.
Prophecy is coming alive, and many of us who are called watchmen are crying out, stating that the time is short. I do believe we are in the midst of what I have come to call a cosmic regime change. In other words, the God of this world, who has ruled this planet ever since the fall of the Garden of Eden, is about to be deposed. This is why we are seeing the signs that Jesus warned us about coming to life. The good news in all of this is that the King of Kings is going to return, and I believe it soon. What we are experiencing are the birth pains, which will give birth, eventually, to a period unlike any other time in human history. It's called the time of Jacob's trouble, or the Great Tribulation. As a dispensationalist, I firmly believe we will not be here for this, as we will rise and meet the Lord of hosts in the air. This, of course, is our blessed hope. Here's a clip from Watchers 9, Days of Chaos, and see for yourself if it's business as usual